thechairshot.com. Always use your head.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Badlands Podcast, the other podcast out there that is 100% chiseled and is proudly part of the Chairshot Media Group. I am Mags, and my podcast wife, Paul Toller, is on his period again, so he needs to have the day off. So unfortunately, he doesn't get the opportunity to be part of our second podcast in our little collab with It's Your House podcast. Today I'm speaking with the talent of the show. I'm speaking with Fazza. Fazza, how are you, sir?
I'm good, thank you very much. And what an introduction! What an introduction! I really appreciate that.
You've got the muckraker in Chris, the one who kind of like just causes all the drama and just brings all the heat, and then you've got the talent, the producer, the editor in yourself.
Yeah, that's about it.
Yeah. So we spoke to Chris last week about the start of the podcast and how you've really done so well since October that you started, and you've picked up steam, got sponsors, and had some really cool guests and some really diverse kind of subjects on your podcast. But so what I wanted to know from you is what do you think is the kind of short-term goal of It's House podcast, and then in the long term, where do you see the podcast going? What do you hope that this could be?
Yeah, it's been one hell of a journey, to be honest with you, in such a short time frame. You look out there at the other podcasters, and some people have been around for years, and we're already on equal platforms, if not surpassing them. So I think the good thing about working with someone like Dee, as you said, he is the drama setter. He knows how the social media side works, and I know how like YouTube and algorithms and things and editing that works. So the short-term goals really are just keep going. I think the one of the worst things any podcast can do is kind of get stuck in the number game and viewership and things like that. I think you just, above all of it, you just need to enjoy what you're doing, and if you don't enjoy it, there's no point doing it. So I think in the short term, it's just to carry on enjoying it, and hopefully we see the guests improve, we see the viewership improve, just because it's two lads who are really settling into how they are in normal life. But long term, now that's a different ball game altogether, my friend. Long term, we want to do. Obviously, we started with wrestling. Wrestling is kind of our fish and chips, as they say. But I think going forwards, we want, like we've had a cosplayer on this week. We're also looking at venturing into the paranormal side of things down the line. YouTube drama, all that stuff, basically, and football, sports, whatever you're into, really. I didn't want to pigeonhole us because there's so many who do so many great podcasts like yourself, but you need that gimmick, don't you? You need that little something that people tune in, and you've got a great gimmick.
I appreciate that.
It's all right, and we're looking for kind of our version of that at the moment. So, I want to do. I've just paid nearly $3,000 for a PC setup.
Jesus.
So I want to start getting into Twitch streaming and things like that as well under the It's Our House Pod moniker. So, and then obviously, looking at things like Patreon, so we can make it maybe a little bit of money from it, just so we can start to make it a bit more of a long-term thing. But yeah, that's it really. We're taking it week by week. We've got guests booked up until the end of March at the moment. And then it's WrestleMania season, isn't it? So we're going to be bringing out some specials that week.
Yeah, I love the way that you're grounded, but you've still got those like high aspirations, and for me that's the. If you're looking for this to be a monetary thing, that's the best way to be. There's no point coming into podcasting thinking instantly you're going to get millions of downloads, you're going to be instantly famous, and you're going to make money, because you're going to be disappointed.
Yes,
because
100%.
The first few podcasts, no cunt listens to you. Literally no one. You've got to build, and like you said, you've got to build your gimmick, you've got to build your brand, and I'm always going to be behind people who want to strive to be better, strive to improve, and if it becomes a business for them, more power to them. So yeah, I wish you all the luck, and I'll definitely be along for the ride, supporting you.
Much love, buddy. Much love. Thank you.
Okay, so let's get into some Mount Rushmores then.
Yes.
This is your first and hopefully not last time on this show.
Definitely not.
So what we like to ask from our guests is their Mount Rushmore of the greatest wrestlers of all time, because it's the most subjective argument in professional wrestling, especially on social media. Everyone has a different answer. Everyone has different reasons. So what we do on Badlands is we gather up everybody's reasons who's ever been on the show, and we make it like a definitive Mount Rushmore. So who are the 4 guys and gals who make your cut for the best wrestlers of all time?
Yeah, all men. I think growing up as we did, attitude. Well, I mean, for me, I started with the Attitude Era. Hulk Hogan and things like that were prior to me, obviously knowing their impact on the business. But I decided to go for 4, which I've watched grow from their inception kind of till the end of their careers. So I'm going to start off with the most obvious choice for I think a lot of people. It's Stone Cold Steve Austin. Mm-hmm. He epitomized everything about the 90s. He started a trailblazing for WWF, now WWE, which I don't think will ever be matched, especially in popularity. Don't get me wrong, I think some of the other people I'll mention on here are just as popular and gone on to do probably bigger things, but for the core of wrestling, it's got to be Stone Cold Steve Austin as your number 1 in my eyes.
Yeah, I totally agree. He was on man, and I think he may be number 2 on the definitive one. I think there's a few what everybody picks, and we've really seen that. So before I tell you who the definitive ones are, let's get the rest of yours.
Yes, number 2 is Triple H, and I don't think he gets a lot of love. I think he gets, obviously because of the Vince McMahon connection, the Stephanie McMahon connection, he doesn't get, as much appreciation as he did. But let's be real here. He created one of the biggest factions in the history of professional wrestling in Degeneration X. Then Evolution. He's created star after star after star. And I've had this argument with a few people. Tell me one bad match he's had. Mm-hmm. I don't think you can. I do not think you can say that Triple H has had a bad match.
I mean, he was involved in the match against Taker and Kane and Shawn Michaels in Saudi, but them Saudi events are definitely not canon. But yeah, I agree with you. I think he's the reason we don't see a lot of votes for him on this show is because a lot of our picks they tend to be retired wrestlers. People don't usually put you on like the Mount Rushmore if you're still an active wrestler. I think once he finally says, nope, this is me, I'm done, I'm definitely a backstage guy now, I think he'll get a lot more kind of love. But yeah, I think he's so underrated with social media wrestling fans. In terms of accolades, the guy's done everything that there is to do, and I'm sure we may be mentioning him a little bit later on in the show. But who gets that 3rd spot?
I'm going to go for John Cena. I know he hasn't officially retired yet. And I've had this argument with Deez on our show. I was not his biggest fan. I hated him. I couldn't stand him. For years and years, I thought he was a waste of space. But I tell you what, since he's gone, he's missed. And it shows his impact on that business. And I think the last 3 or 4 years, when he wasn't in the title scene, he was in the mid-card scene, his feuds with Kevin Owens, people like that. I think I really got to see, I actually really like him. And I don't know whether it was just the youth in me rebelling against him and saying, nah, I'm not supporting this fella who does this. You know what I mean? I'm waving his hand in his face. But I don't think you could. He carried the business. Once all the big top dogs disappeared, I think he was the one who picked up and ran with it, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. And not even just a company. Like you said, the actual wrestling business. It was in a massive funk when he came to the top of the card. And yeah, he did. He absolutely carried it. And look at him now. One of the biggest stars in the world. And when he returns, he gets that pop. And as much as fans on wrestling Twitter claim to, I can't stand Cena, lol, Cena wins, Super Cena, they're all the same people cheering when he returns. So, yeah, it's a great pick. Who's the last pick?
The last pick is the wrestler who I've watched his entire career, and I think he's the biggest superstar on the planet in terms of money, movies, and that's Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. To see, he started, obviously people hated him, then he joined the corporation and things just absolutely bloody changed for him. And again, I think he was never seen as, he was obviously a main eventer with Austin and people like that. But when he left and he came back to host WrestleMania, I still get chills thinking about it now. That's when he's missed. He is missed in that industry. And then obviously what he's gone on to do, not just, he kind of ignored wrestling for a little bit, didn't he? Wanted to pull away from it. But then he came back and he was like, yes, I'm The Rock. Everyone can refer to me as The Rock. And he was just the man I always watched from literally his first match to his last. He was just everything, to be honest. Yeah. And his charisma, no one who's better on a mic. I think it's very, very hard to say anyone else is.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And I think there's rumours come out today that he would be interested in a presidential run. And if you think of any celebrity who would be an amazing president, it is The Rock.
Yes.
Just imagine President Rock.
That'd be amazing, wouldn't it? And from what we see, obviously, on social media, and I don't think anyone's ever come out and said a bad word about him. Mm-hmm. And I think that says everything about the man's character.
Yeah, so. I saw a tweet about him a little while ago, and he was talking about somebody who basically put him up once he decided he wanted to be a wrestler. He left Florida and he went to basically train, and he had $7 in his pocket. That whole story that we've been told. But there was a guy who put him up, and he never forgot that, and he went back like 30 years later, and he bought the guy a brand new Hummer. Yeah, so he's just an absolute legend, and it's a great pick. Going through the actual definitive Mount Rushmore, I think we've had like 120 people on now, around that number, and the top four currently are Ric Flair, Hogan, and then Stone Cold and The Rock. So you're well in that kind of mix of being Bob on the money with the rest of social media. So,
it's going to be interesting, as you said, to see how it changes over the next 10 years or so. It's going to be massive, isn't it?
Well, we thought that there'd be like a big group that kind of run away with it, like say 6 or 7 wrestlers who were always being picked, and then everyone else picking up 1 or 2. But yeah, it's been really weird. We started with like Jericho making a mad run for number 1, and then he dropped off. We've had a little mini battle with Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart, basically pulling even numbers. Yeah, it's been a fun little experiment that we've got going on here.
I like it a lot.
So, with you being part of the It's Your House podcast, and with us having both you and Deez on, we thought we'd kind of link your topics together. So, Chris got last week the Mount Rushmore of one-time champions. So that's champions who've won a certain belt. Doesn't really matter which. One time they could have won something else 100 times, but they just won a one time with a certain belt. So we thought with you, we'd double up and we'd go with the 2-time champions. So who is your first pick on your Mount Rushmore of the best 2-time champions?
Okay. Yeah, it was a difficult one because 2-time champions. There's so many in that the top 50 that you kind of pick from. It's no surprise that a lot of them are WWE guys. But I want to start with my female, and I'm going to go for Becky Lynch.
Great pick.
Yeah, and I think the reason for Becky Lynch is she's such a hard person to figure out sometimes. Her heel run was absolutely fantastic. I mean, what a run that was. Forced her to be a face. I think WWE get the booking wrong so many times, especially, joining her with Seth Jordan, the whole we're together thing, but they'll milk her for all it's worth. But, she absolutely is, her and Charlotte are kind of the central of the 4 horsewomen. And I don't think there's anyone outside. I love all 4 of them. but she's the one I like to watch week in and week out. And I think she's helped a whole generation of women want to be wrestlers. So that's what she's there.
It's a very rare thing to see a woman as the face of WWE, and she absolutely kicked that door down.
Definitely,
and all by sheer accident, I suppose, because you could tell WWE were looking for Ronda versus Charlotte. That was what I mean. As much as Tali loves Charlotte, I think WWE really want her to be the face of that women's division.
Definitely.
But the whole kind of the way they tried to turn Becky, and the fans were having it, and the next week she had to like basically backtrack because no one believed Becky as a heel. Nia Jax smashing her face in and creating the biggest star in the world. The man stuff, it was an amazing run, and hopefully when she's ready to come back, she hits the ground running and she doesn't stay a 2-time champion. She becomes a multi-time champion. Great first pick. Let's start with mine. I'm tempted to go. I've got one female on my list, so I'm tempted to go tit for tat with you. So I'm going to go with Shayna Baszler on my list.
Okay.
So Shayna's majority of her career was in MMA, switched to pro wrestling in 2015, and the way she did it is something I'll always have a lot of respect for. Instead of going, with her name, she could have made it straight to WWE, she could have gone straight to the big show, but she wanted to learn the game from the ground up, went to Stardom, made her way to NXT, was in the final of the Mae Young Classic. She ended up debuting in NXT in December 2017. Quickly was in that title hunt, picked up the NXT Women's title, had a fairly decent run, 133 days. She beat the likes of Dakota Kai, Nikki Cross, but then she dropped the belt to Kairi Sane at, I think it was Brooklyn 4.
Yeah.
But then less than 3 months later, she got that title back and went on an amazing 414-day run, which actually makes her the longest reigning champion in terms of like combined times at 548 days. And she's the only 2-time NXT Women's Champion, which is some kind of like a feather she could have in a cap.
Definitely.
Gone on to the main roster, obviously, and while she's not really hit the same kind of heights as that she's got in NXT, I'm absolutely loving this stuff that she's doing with Nia Jax. It's really brought out a really different part of her character from that super serious, like a hardcore wrestling woman to someone who's got a bit of a comedy edge. So, for my first pick, I'm going to go with Shayna Baszler.
Yeah, great choice. I think I was reading last week that the last non-Big Four pay-per-view was the Elimination Chamber last year, wasn't it? And obviously she won it. Great character. I think, as you said, putting it with Nia is really going to help her character develop in terms of, not being so serious, which I think a lot of them need to develop. But in NXT, she was a beast. And I hope sometime in the future, whether obviously we don't know the backstage politics, whether Vince isn't a fan of her or whatnot, but if she sticks around, she's definitely going to get the chance as she goes forward, 100%. Because I think Asuka is 42-ish now, I think, round about there, and obviously there's going to be a point where she's going to step away from wrestling, and who do you fill a spot? I think Shayna is perfect for that. So great choice, mate. Great choice. Yeah.
Cheers for that. So let's go to you, sir, for your second choice.
My second choice is an Olympic gold medalist, Mr. Kurt Angle.
Good pick.
Going back to what you said about Shayna, I think he was exactly the same. Came into wrestling as kind of a big thing, wasn't really liked by the fans when he came in, but his first year in WWF when he came in, he practically nearly won everything, didn't he?
Outstanding. Yeah, I think he was the first ever Triple Crown winner to do it in the debut year. Yeah, absolutely outstanding.
Yeah, brilliant. And then obviously gone on to have such an amazing career, was phenomenal in Impact as well. Really carried that business on his back. And it was good to see him back in WWE for such a short time. It's a shame he didn't really get to wrestle single-handedly at WrestleMania. But, you know, we never know what the future. He's looking in great shape. Whether he'll go to AEW for a little bit, because obviously his Legends contracts ran out, I'm not sure. But yeah, he's on there as he's one of the greatest of all time, isn't he? And definitely one of the greatest two-time champions of all time.
Yeah, and it's mad that his Impact run was actually longer than his original WWF run. He was just so good, and the way he kind of changed up his character as well, went from like the super serious like Olympic hero to the amazing comedy stuff with Stone Cold, then going back to the super serious like suplex machine style he had in Impact. Yeah, the guy's absolutely he is the first real, for me, legitimate wrestler to be. I mean, it's certainly my kind of fandom. And it's a great pick. And to be honest, he didn't even want anything to do with wrestling. No. I did some research on him for a previous show, and he saw pro wrestling as beneath him. Because obviously he won Olympic gold. And when he first spoke with Vince McMahon, he wanted a 10-year contract, and he would never ever lose a match. So Vince sent him on his merry way, and it was actually being invited to that ECW show that, even though he hated what went on with all the hanging of the crucifixion of Sandman and stuff like that, but he said the stuff what happened in the ring just appealed to him so much, and so he went cap in hand basically back to Vince and said, "I want to be part of this," and the rest is history. Definitely.
Legend.
So, for my second pick, we mentioned him a little bit earlier in your greatest wrestlers of all time. It's Triple H, and as you said, if in this world of WWE, there's not anybody who's as influential as Trips. This guy was terrorizing, if you remember, Jean-Paul Levesque, and now after the runs with DX and being multiple-time world champion, is essentially the second in command in WWE and the head honcho of NXT. All the way through his career, this guy has done literally everything. 4-time PWI Feud of the Year winner, Wrestler of the Decade for the 2000s. He's got number 1 on the PWI 500 twice. 2-time Royal Rumble winner, King of the Ring winner, Hall of Famer with DX, 5 times RC champion, 3-time tag champion, 14-time world champion. But the one that I want to focus on is probably a footnote on his career, the 2 times he was European champion. So his first actual run with that belt came when Commissioner Slaughter made Shawn Michaels, who was the world and European champion at the same time, he made him defend that belt against Triple H, but the two did the old bait and switch when they basically did a copy of the Finger Poke of Doom, which gave Hunter his first run with the European title, the first ever. I think he was the 3rd ever champion. He lost that to Owen Hart when he had a Gold Dust come in as a replacement called Hunter Dust, where he was dressed up with a massive fake prosthetic nose. But that feud carried on all the way into the run-up of WrestleMania 14, where the match that it was meant to have with Owen Hart was meant to be on WrestleMania 14, but Owen was legitimately injured. So to drop the title, they did a quick roll-up kind of match I think it was like the week before WrestleMania. And he got his second run with the title. They actually would end up having the match with Owen at WrestleMania. He recovered enough that he could have the match, but Owen lost. But Triple H would drop the belt to D'Lo Brown, one of the best European champions we've ever had.
Of all time.
Of all time. And then he'd move on to bigger and better things, obviously, like all the multi-time world champions. So, my second pick is Trips.
Yeah, absolutely amazing choice. As I said at the start, don't think he gets half the respect he deserves. You know, all those accolades you've just read off, including PWI. You know, to be honest, I didn't even know half of them. So it just shows just exactly how influential he's been to the current roster, to the, as you said, the 2000 roster, the future of the business in NXT. You know, I've read recently he had a single-handedly bringing in MSK. The Rascals, who have just absolutely taken NXT tag team by storm. He's got such an eye for talent. As we said, moving to the main roster, and when he fully takes over that, I'm not sure. It's a different kettle of fish, you know, different producers, different. You know, as Dee said in one of his tweets, it's like when Vince does go, a lot of stakeholders are going to panic.
Yeah, you see on wrestling Twitter so many people clamoring for Triple H to take over, thinking there's going to be this massive sweeping change and it's going to be Raw and SmackDown are going to be pretty much like NXT, but they're not, because Vince, even though Vince is the head of the company, he's got to answer to the people who own shares, the licensees, the sponsors, the TV deals. If there are going to be changes, it's going to take a long, long time and it's going to be very gradual. But if there's anybody you can see take the company as far as Vince can and hopefully surpass him, it would be Triple H, I think.
100%, yeah, 100%. It's going to be an interesting future either way. So,
Faz, let's go to you for your third pick.
Yeah, Shawn Michaels. You know, Heartbreak Kid. What more can you say about him? What a career from start to finish. Every single title he's won has meant something. Such a shame he got injured in the 2000s and had to take a bit of a long break. Had one of the best WrestleMania matches of all time with Stone Cold in terms of what it meant for the future of the business. Yeah, he's an absolute, and you know, we know he found God, and he had some horrendous years in the 90s doing mad stuff. But everyone loves the Heartbreak Kid, don't they?
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say that his 2002 run was arguably better than his original run.
Definitely.
Because he put over so many wrestlers. He had much better matches. I mean, the match that he had with Jericho, when Jericho lamped his wife, that stuff was brilliant. The matches with Taker at WrestleMania where he had to retire. Yeah. It'd be interesting to know what it would have been like if he didn't have that break. If he didn't pass the baton on to Stone Cold, just what kind of direction the company would have gone in. Because as good as he was very political backstage. He used his stroke quite a lot. But I mean, I can't fault him being a pick. He's an absolute legend, and you've got 3 quality picks so far. Let's see if my third pick lives up to that. I'm going to go down a little bit of a different route now. I'm going to go for 2 people in one. I'm going to go for the Usos.
Oh yes, what a choice!
So yeah, twin brothers of Rikishi, WWF Hall of Famer, part of that massive Anoa'i dynasty that's got the likes of Afasika, Umaga, Rosa, Yokozuna, The Rock, and obviously Roman Reigns in there. A lot of pressure on these 2 guys to live up to that, but I do believe that they've more than earned their prestige of that family name. They've won tons and tons of awards and accomplishments from the likes of CBS Sports, PWI, and in 2014 they were actually both on the PWI 500. Jimmy was 25th and Jay was 26th. So for tag team wrestlers to be like to be acknowledged like that by PWI is a massive thing. In terms of in the WWE, they were back-to-back winners of the Tag Team of the Year in 2014, 2015, and they've been 4-time SmackDown Tag Team Champions, but they've actually been 2-time what would eventually become the Raw Tag Team titles. The first time they won it, they beat the New Age Outlaws, and this was just before the transition to them being the Raw titles. They had a 202-day reign with the title. They was on the WrestleMania 30 pre-show with the belts. They had a feud with the Wyatt family, but unfortunately, now champions. They lost to Goldust and Stardust. It won't be long before they actually won the titles again. I think they beat the Miz and Damien Sandow for the titles on the Christmas edition of Raw that year. And then they held them till Fastlane 2015, where they lost to Cesaro and Tyson Kidd. They still got quite a few title shots after that, and unfortunately, Jay would pick up an injury, and by the time they come back, they ended up being drafted over to SmackDown in the 2016 draft, where they've been absolutely dominant, and they were actually the first ever tag team to win both the SmackDown and the Raw title. So yeah, and then you see Jay now in that title picture, looking absolutely legitimate in there,
yes.
As part of that kind of a head of the table Samoan dynasty with Roman Reigns. So yeah, I've got to go with the Uce.
Yeah, such a good choice. I was made up when you said that. Yeah, they've been my favorite tag team for probably. I didn't really like the Samoan run. Coming out and doing all the dances and things, but I get it. It's part of the heritage, and WWE likes to really play on it. But when the Uso State Penitentiary and all
that's when they got me.
Yeah, it was just such a good, and you could see they really enjoyed what they were doing. That it was them. Their feud with the New Day was just beyond amazing. Yeah, both of them, and as you said, Jay now in the main event scene. He's obviously going to be going to WrestleMania, probably against KO. You probably see it. Them two are going to put on a hell of a show. Yeah, great choice. Absolutely brilliant. I made up. You said it. You made my day.
and the good thing is as well, you've always got that kind of a story in the background of them splitting and getting a Uso versus Uso match, which would be absolute banger. So
which obviously they might be leading up to that now, with Jay obviously being on Roman's side. You can see him coming back saying, why are you doing it? What are you going against him for? And it could lead to some very, very interesting matches. I mean, imagine a triple threat between them three. What a match that would be. What a match.
Oh, that would be awesome. So let's go to you, sir, for your final pick. Who's your last two-time champion?
Yeah, I've got to go with Chris Jericho.
Interesting.
I think, he's not my favourite anymore. Me and Deez have this conversation often, but I think he's one of the... He's in the same category for me as Shawn Michaels in terms of what he's done for the business. He's carried a lot of companies. Obviously, with AEW now, I think, we're not seeing the best of him. Obviously, he's in the end of his career, but a lot of this political stuff is coming out about him and that. But back in the 90s, back in the 2000s, especially, no one saw him getting pushed that main event scene. But when he did, he ran with it. Multiple time Intercontinental Champion. When he comes on, and his feud with KO. I mean, it was fantastic. It was the feud of the year. Should have been headlining WrestleMania. But obviously, Vince likes to take his title off and give it to Goldberg at every opportunity possible, doesn't he? But yeah, Chris Jericho, again, he's not my favourite wrestler in terms of now, but how could you not watch him during the 2000s? How could you not?
I mean, I agree. His debut on Raw will always be my favourite debut. I did a poll
on Twitter about favourite debuts of all time, and it was him, and then Kane was shortly behind. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, back then I was hardcore WWF. I knew of WCW, but not enough that I'd watch it week on week. But when you see Chris Jericho turn up, you're like, oh my God, that's massive. Yeah. To go one-on-one in terms of mark time with The Rock in your debut, that's shows how much they thought of him. And then the thing, what really impressed me with him, he always knew not to outstay his welcome.
Yes.
He'd always go away, spend some time doing other projects, writing a book with his band, whatever. But whenever he come back, it was a huge deal. And he always put somebody else over. He's always had the ability to reinvent himself. Like I said, nowadays his wrestling is not up to the quality that he's done before. But the guy's 50 years old. He's been doing it for 30 years. His political leanings and the stuff he does outside of the ring, yeah, I'm not a huge fan of. But as a wrestler, I think he'll always be my number one goat. So, I'm absolutely down with that pick. So I'll round off mine, and we've mentioned the guy a couple of times now. I think it's got to be Roman Reigns.
Yes.
The current face of the company, the tribal chief, head of the table. He's now in the position that Vince always wanted him to be in when he was shoved down our throats. The suffering succotash. This is my yard now. The white meat babyface where. Yep. The fans detested him. It's as simple as that.
Who knew, Who knew the fans were right about this one? Turning him heel made perfect sense, and we've been calling it for years.
But the more interesting thing for me is I don't even see him as a full-on heel. No. It's just a little bit of he's got an edge. He's got an edge to his character, that's all. And everyone's bought into it. Yep. In the decade he's been wrestling, he's been Inspirational Wrestler of the Year in 2018 and 2019, obviously for doing so well to beat leukemia twice. PWR number one in 2016. He's won 7 Slammy Awards, 2015 Royal Rumble, Tag Team Champion, US Champion, RC Champion, 3-time WWE Champion, and now he's the current and 2-time Universal Champion. So if you go back to when he first won that title against Brock at SummerSlam 2018, such a great match. The kind of like middleman of Braun Strowman being involved, declaring that he's going to cash in on the winner, kind of like threw Brock for a loop, and he was able to take that belt. Unfortunately, he had to relinquish that. I think it was just before Crown Jewel when he announced to the world that his leukemia had come back and he'd have to go away for treatment. But thankfully for the wrestling world and for him himself, he returned 6 months later, fully in remission, which is absolutely amazing. Definitely. But he wouldn't get the chance to get his title back before the world came to a halt and set itself on fire with this stupid COVID bullshit. So without having the option, he had to take another hiatus, being immunocompromised. It wasn't worth the risk. But then at SummerSlam 2020, he came back, attacked The Fiend and Braun, and added that little something that just kind of shook the WWE world when we found out he was he had a new manager in Paul Heyman. Yes. I think Paul Heyman has been that one key ingredient to putting Roman way over the top. He beat Strowman and The Fiend to win the Universal title. And as we record now, I mean, it may change in the coming weeks, but as we record now, he's still the champion. He's having arguably his best in-ring work. I mean, the stuff with Kevin Owens at the Last Man Standing match was absolutely brilliant. Yeah. The storyline with Jey Uso has been phenomenal, and we've got that tease of a potential match at WrestleMania with Edge after he won the 2021 Royal Rumble. Yeah, this is definitely the year of Roman Reigns. I want him to be that champion for at least till next year's WrestleMania. And yeah, he's that's why he's got the last pick on my Mount Rushmore.
Great choice. I think, as you said, and we were talking about it before with Vince and stakeholders and what they want and businesses, and as you said, I don't think any of them want Roman to drop that title. No. It makes perfect sense. He's been an absolute beast. Again, it fits the John Cena thing, like I was saying before, in terms of didn't like his character, didn't like the big dog of the yard stuff, just didn't seem real to me, didn't seem honest and true of him. But when he came back, again, he's one of them, so you missed him. You didn't realise you missed him until he came back. And then what a return to make, and as you said, siding with Paul Heyman, and now his character, the tribal chief, head of the table. The way, even to the subtle things of Paul Heyman saying, he says reinsing. He doesn't say reigning. He said reinsing. That's just it's little things like that where you're like, You genius. You absolute genius. And yeah, I think, he's got a lot of fuel left in the tank, but he's going to go down as one of the greatest of all time. And he's probably going to be someone's pick. As the longer you do this, he'll be up there in that top four.
I believe so. I believe he's already had a Hall of Fame level career, and he's still got a decade plus to go.
Definitely.
And you can definitely see him following in the Rock's footsteps and becoming a massive superstar outwards, because it looks like he's chiseled out of granite. I mean. It's unfair that he's so good at absolutely everything and still looks as good as he does. That's some bullshit.
We'll stick to podcast today.
Yeah, I mean, if he come into the podcast, he'll smoke us all. If he drops a podcast, we just might as well all give up. Well, Faz, I think you've got an absolutely superb Mount Rushmore with yours of Becky Lynch, Kurt Angle, HBK and Chris Jericho. But what I need from you now, sir, is I need a topic for a future guest. What kind of a Mount Rushmore would you like to hear about?
Well, we spoke about it recently on the It's Our House podcast, and it's a tournament that kind of gets forgotten. So I think the future Rushmore could be King of the Ring winners.
Oh, interesting. I mean, I know, man, straight off the top, you can't go without King Booker. King Booker's got to be the best king. But yeah, that's a great topic, and I'm excited to see what the team and the guests can come up with. But yeah, this has been really, really fun. I'm really thankful that you took the time to do this. Tell the Badlands listeners where they can find you, where they can find your content and everything about It's Your House podcast.
Yeah, so you can follow me on Twitter at Fazza's Thoughts. I'm also on Facebook, but it's mostly Twitter. It's FAZZAS Thoughts. And then you can find the pod absolutely everywhere. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. YouTube, obviously, all podcast platforms. We're going to be on Twitch soon, and all you need to type in is It's Our House Pod. It's either at It's Our House Pod or just It's Our House Pod, and you will find us everywhere. And he'll have a go at me if I don't tell you. Go and follow Chris at PWCDs if you just want to be angry all the time, because he loved it. So yeah.
Yeah, listeners, definitely go and check out It's Our House Pod. I'm lucky enough to be teammates with these guys over at Visionaries Global Media, and they put out quality content every week, and it's so diverse. One week it's a discussion about a certain topic. Next week you're bringing on amazing guests like the referee that you had on the other week, and the cosplayer from this past week. So yeah, go and check them out. Go and give Faz a follow. Maybe don't follow Chris unless you like your timeline filled with anger and hate. No, definitely go and follow him.
It's worth it.
I love him. He just has no fucks to give, and that's the best way to be on Twitter.
He really doesn't, and honest to God, the fallout and the arguments and the discussions that he used to have, he comes to me now and goes, "Was I right? Was I right on this?" Because I like to be the middle ground and go, "Yes, Chris, you can go ahead, go and argue with them." But yeah, it's great. We can't wait to bring you more, and obviously we're gonna have you guys on in the future.
Yes,
can't wait.
Already booked in. Yeah. So yeah, can't wait for that. But yeah, definitely go and check out Faz. Go and check out It's Our House Pod. Check out Chris. These guys make great content. But that's it for today, listeners. You can follow me on Twitter at DJ Kirby. Follow my absent podcast wife, Paul, at Raincouter. Follow the show at Badlands Pod, and definitely check out the rest of the content on the Chairshot Media Group, just banging out content day after day after day. Thank you all for listening, and that is the end.
TheChairshot.com. Always use your head.